Well, they say it's never too early to start thinking about retirement, and most of us are pretty excited about the golfing, maybe the traveling, whatever you have planned, but not so much about the financial preparation it takes to get there. Joining me to help us prepare is Tim Sesnick, chartered accountant, tax expert, and Globe and Mail columnist, just to name a few of your accomplishments.
It keeps me busy.
Just a few things. We don't have time to go through everything you've done. You've had a great career.
I love what I do. I love it. Talking about money all the time and helping people do the right things with their money. It's just, what God decided I should do. So I love it.
And one of the things we really need help with is retirement planning. You work with a lot of different people who are in different stages of retirement. Probably you have some successes. Some people maybe aren't willing to make the sacrifices. Yeah. What's the biggest challenge that you see in preparing for retirement?
The biggest challenge is to get people to sit down and actually ask themselves the question, how much am I going to need? And what should retirement look like for me? A lot of people don't want to think about that, and they haven't thought about the future. And it all comes down to, first of all, painting a vision for yourself. What do you want to do? What does God want you to do in your retirement years? If you want to call it retirement, the truth is many Canadians today, many people today, anywhere in the world, just aren't retiring like they used to. Retirement looks different than it was.
Yeah.
Gone are the days where you stop working, sit in your rocking chair, and then kind of wither away. People are doing things. They have a purpose beyond their working years, and I think that's the way God would want it.
People are living longer. They have more energy. They have more ability, and as well, it's hard to plan for 30 years of retirement. It used to be 10, 15, maybe 20 at the most, right?
If you look at biblically, if you look at in the book of Numbers, in chapter 8, the Bible talks about priests that were required to retire at age 50. But not to retire to a rocking chair and do nothing for the rest of their lives. It was to help and assist the younger priests in doing what they were supposed to be doing. So, I think that's a good lesson for us. We may have those days where we're no longer doing what we're doing now, but don't think that there isn't a purpose beyond what you're doing now. So the question becomes, of course, how do you provide for yourself beyond what you're doing now, because your income might not be the same in those later years.
That's right, and purpose is so important. I read a study out of the UK that said that 60% people who stopped working completely at retirement, they were 60% more likely to have a physical ailment and 40% more likely to be depressed. And so having that purpose, even in retirement, I know is so important, and money's part of that, because it takes money to do things. So everybody says starting your 20s, that's a tough thing. When I was in my 20s, I was having a hard time just making rent.
It's really hard to convince anybody in their 20s or sometimes even their early 30s to set aside something for retirement. But the truth is, 5 years makes a huge difference in terms of what you were able to save over the course of time. And people also misunderstand how much really they're going to need to save. Yeah, the government's going to provide some support. Today, if you live in Canada, you're going to get Canada Pension Plan benefits, likely old age security benefits. Those will probably total about $14,000 a year in today's dollars. But if that's not enough for you, then you have to ask yourself the question, how much more am I going to need, and how do I get there?
And I have to ask you this, because I grew up in the time where they were always saying, oh, the Canadian Pension Plan is not going to be there for you when you hit retirement. And as I get closer, it still seems to exist. So is there hope there for younger people?
Yeah, in the investment world, and I know some people that work on the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, they'll tell you that the plan's actually in really good shape. So I'm not concerned that, when I'm 65 or 70, that I won't be able to collect what I probably have put in. So it's looking pretty good right now.
You can kind of count on that. Your retirement's a long way away anyway, so
yeah,
no worries about that. So, we're putting money away, and honestly, I have to say, I think a lot of people are in my position. Sometimes we don't look at it because we don't want to face it, right? Because it's just hard to know how you can change anything that you're already doing if you're financially overwhelmed, or, just money sometimes in life can be overwhelming. A lot of us think we're doing okay, though, but you showed me a chart that was wake-up call?
Scary.
Is that, so is a wake-up call the way to say it?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that chart.
Sure, let's take a look at it.
Tell me a little bit about this.
So, there's a lot of numbers on this chart here, but just to paint a picture for you, you need to decide how much income do you need in retirement. So if you take a look at the top row here, maybe it's $20,000 you need on the left-hand side, or maybe it's 40 or 60 or 80, whatever you need, whatever you think is right for you. That will drive or determine how much you need to have set aside for you, waiting for you, if you will, when you reach whatever age you're going to retire at. Right. So, but just as a general rule, let's say you need $20,000 of income. You're getting some from the government. You want to supplement that by another 20. You need to start thinking about accumulating upwards of about $500,000 to provide you with that $20,000 of income for about a 30-year period of time. So this is conservative. I'm assuming you're going to live for a long time.
Yes. Not everyone lives to 95.
That's right. And you can see across the chart the numbers go up quite a bit. So, you know, if you wanted $60,000 of income over and above what the government's giving you, you probably got to set aside about $1.5 million. And that's a lot of money.
So basically you're saying I have to be a millionaire in order to retire at $60,000 a year, which is about the average income of Canadians.
It can be really daunting, but the truth is, the key message here is this, that understand really how much you're going to need, by evaluating what your lifestyle is likely to be like, and then do the math to figure out really how much do you need to have set aside for you when you get there at retirement age. And then what does that mean for you today? What do you got to put aside today? The numbers might be higher than you think, but don't lose heart, because there are some things you can do in retirement to help to manage your costs of retirement, and bring the costs and bring the requirements down a little bit. And there's nothing better actually, Cheryl, than today being modest about how much you spend.
Not living out to your full salary, spending every cent that you have.
Not only because it allows you to save some today, but because if you become accustomed to a very expensive lifestyle today, to take a step back in retirement and say, now I'm going to cut my lifestyle in half, it's a very difficult adjustment for a lot of people to make. Whereas, you know, if you start fairly modestly today, it's easier to continue on with that in retirement. And
you know, it's such a huge message to send out there, because you hear all these horror stories of seniors having to depend on food banks, or people say eating cat food. I'm sure, I pray it's not that bad, but you know, it is in the planning. So if I'm in my 50s, say right now, and I'm not yet, but if I was in my 50s and I'm facing retirement, maybe I haven't been disciplined like I should have been, maybe I didn't start early. What would you suggest for that person? What could they do? Well,
you know, and I've said before, you know, the sooner you start, the better it is. Even a 5-year difference makes a big difference in how much you can accumulate. So what you want to do is first get a handle on what that pot of money needs to look like at 65 or whatever age you've decided is going to be, or you think should be, your retirement age. And I call it retirement. I use that in quotes, because really, as I said, retirement may not be just sitting around doing nothing. You know, maybe the next chapter of your life. God has another purpose for you. You're going to do some other things in your life. But again, you may not have income in those years like you do now. So planning for that is important. And so find out really how much what that's going to look like. And as a general rule, think about it this way. For every $20,000 of income you want, or you're going to need in retirement, multiply that number by about 25, and that gives you some conservative estimate of what you might need in terms of a pool of money waiting for you on your retirement date.
That's a great formula.
That's assuming you're going to be living for 30 years in retirement,
right?
65
and none of us
to 95. Know. And we were talking earlier. I said, you know, people are living longer. You know, 95 is the new 90.
Yeah, I love that.
Talking about, so you know, you have to be ready.
Well, all those 95s out there, you're the new 90. That's great. Well, you know what? Tax time is coming. We're right into that season. A lot of people are saying, you know, you should borrow money to put it into RSPs. And that's a controversial thing. You know, do I take on more debt? What would you say to that?
I believe that in saving for retirement, it's important enough that if you have not been doing it for a while and you're behind, then borrowing some money, as long as you have the means to pay off that loan over, say, a 1-year period of time, is not a bad idea. It could actually be a good idea. You're accumulating assets. It's a forced savings program. Again, you don't want to stress yourself so that you're putting yourself in a situation where you're borrowing money you're going to have a tough time repaying.
Right.
You can always pull the money out of your RSP to pay it, but that's not what you want to do. So as long as you can make the payments, it's a good way to get caught up.
And also you get that benefit back at tax time, and you can use that money to pay off the debt too, right? That's the discipline of it.
That's right. There are tax savings that come along with the donation, so the contribution to your RSP. And also don't forget about the tax-free savings account.
Right.
It's another way to save for maybe short-term things. Allows you to save on a tax-free basis, so you're not paying tax as the money grows. So use that plan as well. They're easy to set up, and every Canadian who's over 18 should have one.
Okay, we only have a minute left, but quickly, buying a home. I hear there's a big trend toward people renting and taking that extra money to invest as opposed to having to do the upkeep of a home.
Yeah, I really believe that buying a home, if you can do it, is a cornerstone of good financial decision making. It's a critical part of providing that for yourself in the future, because you're building equity with every mortgage payment you make. You probably can't pay cash for your home. You probably have to borrow some money to do it. But with every mortgage payment, you build up more value for yourself and for your family. On top of that, you have, if you're buying it for long term, you have a growth in value of that property over time. So you're benefiting in a couple of ways.
And then when you look at that income in retirement, if you're not having to pay your mortgage anymore, that actually makes that income much more doable.
You have a place to live and you're not paying for it anymore other than repairs and upkeep. So it's just a smart thing to do all around.
So no matter what your age is, there's still hope. Is that what you're telling us?
There is hope, but don't delay, and find out how much you need to set aside and start on the program now.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your advice. You're such a wise man. Hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome.